take networks off because we have a 10% close rate off that.
Mhm.
Let's take that $2,300. Let's put it more into Google. And it takes a lot of work to keep that organized. That's what I was saying about seeing him organized with his numbers
Right.
really gave me that piece to just like
Yeah.
got
Uh-huh.
that. Like I'll create culture over here. You
Right.
keep
Right.
a freak in the sheets kind of thing, you know? But
A freak in the Google Sheets.
in the Google Sheets, yeah.
All right, guys. So I'm here with Blake Catone. Now, Blake helped co-found a company that, when he exited from, was worth 6.4 million. They specialize in attics, lots of different services with attics. And today we're just going to be diving into operations and culture and what it takes to get a company to that point. So yeah, let's dive right into it. So first thing I was curious about is how you and Jonathan initially met and just kind of what you guys saw in each other that you thought a partnership would be a good idea.
Yeah, that's a great question. So a lot of people actually get mixed up in this and get mixed up in bad partnerships or don't really
Yeah.
see the the drive in somebody or the lack of drive in somebody or even the lack of organization in some people as well. And so I would say how John and I really we met through my brother. My brother met him at a coffee shop, actually, just
Nice.
walking. He was actually open carrying where we live in Texas. So he was open carrying and they just started talking about it and just like the laws about it and all of that. And then they really
Right.
started to be good friends. My brother works at a church, so he was really just kind of discipling him, had him and his
Mhm.
wife over and just kind of like worked with him on all of that on that
Okay.
scale. While all that happened, he was actually in the process of selling another business.
Okay.
And and with that, I was actually in the process of selling another business and moving up to Dallas. And so
Mhm.
with that, my brother was like, "Hey, you're selling a business. My brother's selling a business. Y'all should meet each other and make your own business." And so we met each other over the phone, and there was weeks of
Mhm.
talking, and we didn't know really what we wanted to do. He didn't know what he wanted to do. I didn't know what I
Right.
wanted to do. We didn't know if we were going to do it together or just it. And that's the best way of starting a partnership.
That sounds really fun, not gonna lie.
And
I
yeah,
agree.
and
Right.
actually one thing that my last the business previous before that, the first business was a residential remodeling business, but it was with my dad. And
Okay.
I loved it. It was so much fun and he was the best person to be in business with. And but one thing that John said whenever I was going into business with him is he sold his previous business before that. Um, he sold that and it was alone. He was alone on all of it. Like it's
Okay.
not fun alone.
Right.
It's just not fun alone. I want to do it together. I want to do it with somebody. And so that's what kind of drew him into a partnership. And me, I was I'm a I'm straight out of production. I'm straight out of construction, just doing right on the field, meeting guys where they're at, creating that culture, like you had just said about talking about culture, creating that culture, being on site and leading men um,
Mhm.
into into
Into battle.
well, no, not no, no, not hey, with some clients it is into battle, man. It is into battle, but just leading them to that perfect craftsmanship
Right.
and to
Yeah.
that quality of work that we should all do, you know.
Yeah.
And so so it created a good pair. We found out what each other's gifts were throughout
Mhm.
that first couple weeks of on the phone. I didn't even meet him in person yet. Um, and uh and so we really found out what each other's gifts were before we even met each other in person. And then I remember John was like, "Man, I want to do insulation." And I was like, "I don't know about that one. I think I'm good on that." And then he started to kind of open up a little bit more of kind of what his idea was, and I was still kind of out of it for a little while. I was like, I don't really want to. I don't know if I want to do that
Well,
because
it's
I
easy
came
for
from.
him to say, let's do insulation when he's not the actual one uh, in the field.
Yeah, well, yeah, but well, he did sales, right? It was he was the front man at first,
Right.
you know, and then I'm the back man, and so it was a good combo. It's a really good combo. We made a excellent team.
Do you feel
Uh,
like do you feel like like your brother, like having that relationship with him kind of pre-established, made it easier for you to trust him to go into business with him?
um, yes and no. I
Okay.
think I to be honest with you, I'm not a stickler. I'm not scared about equity or percentage or
Hmm.
what are you going to do with this part of the company or where are you going to go with that. Like I trust people quite a bit. Maybe a little too fast, maybe a little too much, but God's given me discernment to trust the
Hmm.
to not trust the people that I shouldn't trust.
Sure.
So, um yeah, I mean, I think for him it gave him a peace of mind
Hmm.
knowing his
Yeah.
brother. But for me, I'm just let's go, let's wheel and deal. You know, I
Right.
lose if I lose this business, I don't care. I'm not living for this.
Just started.
I'm not living
Sure.
for any of this business, right? Like we're living for something a lot bigger than
Mhm.
anything on this planet. And that's how you gotta live, man. So
Well, you said that you guys had some like you were able to recognize each other's gifts. What would you say are some of the strengths that you saw in him and vice versa?
yeah, him, I know that he had confidence in sales. He had confidence in all the numbers too. I mean, it was he is very very smart and very good at putting his head down and learning something. And so that gave me some trust to be
Mm,
able to
right.
give him that now not give him that part, but allow him to go without questioning a lot of things. But I recognized how quick he was to learn, his problem solving, and his his ability to organize the numbers and sell.
Mm,
He is a salesman at heart. And like one of our clients, this was obviously after everything, but
right.
um one of our client after starting the business and everything, one of our clients goes, "Man, you remind me of an old car salesman." Like very, very pushy, very like salesman, like just bringing the hammer to a table, like you know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
very, very uh pushy and hard. And that's exactly who he is. Um, and he's good at it. He's really good at it. So
What did he see in you that made him feel good about going to business with you?
confidence of the field, confidence of subcontractors. So how we built that business
Yep.
was he had sales, I had production, and then underneath the production, we hired contractors to come in and do the
Okay.
installation. Now we had supervisors and all of that, but you really don't want to do any of your any of your work in-house until you hit probably about 10 to 12 million a year. Then you want to start thinking about doing it in-house. But anyways, we he saw the skill of being able to recognize good work, lead good work, the craftsmanship on just my side and the level of excellence that I
Hmm.
want to bring on every job site. He saw that. And also the culture. He could see just and this is what he would talk about if he was here. He could see the the way I could bring culture, the way I could lead men, and the way that I could teach as well.
Very cool. Um, so why insulation of all the, if you're starting a business from scratch, right? There are so many things that you can do. that
Yeah.
are probably a lot more fun to do, right? So
Yeah.
what was it about insulation that he especially that drew him to that, and then I guess eventually drew you to that?
It's easy, man. It was easy. You learn one thing, you get one thing perfect, you'll be a millionaire, man. Very easy. Just
Interesting. Okay.
learn one thing and get good at that one thing. Tile, learn it. Be good at tile. Insulation, learn it. Get good at insulation. Get good at one thing and you'll go. You can go.
Gotcha.
But that was it. Streamlining. That was one of the big things is
So was your guys strategy to start with subs to kind of bring in those skills and then kind of learn from them and then eventually hire in-house people, or how did you
yeah,
do
so you have to learn, you have to know some, right? You gotta be able to because those subcontractors might come in and screw you, right? Like
that?
we've
Right.
had
Yeah.
some try to do that. We've had some do that at some points. But you need to learn some, but when you find a contractor that you're selling jobs for and he's on your side, you're going to learn a lot more from him than he'll learn from you. And whether just even though you're his boss, you're still going to learn a lot more from him. It's
Right.
it's you got to hire somebody that knows more than you so that you can focus on building the business and not working on the business. And it's or not working for the business. And so it's it's more so like what was the question again? I lost it after that.
Just like kind of what your process was to because it is a very streamlined niche. So like, how did you guys eventually transition to in-house employees?
So we had 12 employees when I left,
Okay.
and we had now nobody was doing the installation. We still had contractors.
Okay.
Um, and we just had managers and sales reps.
Okay.
So admin. And so
Yeah.
if if you combined all the contractors together, it probably would have been 50 people or so.
Okay. Wow.
But
But I feel like even if it's even as like kind of the simplicity of going with one thing, like managing 50 contractors for one type of service is probably a lot easier than if it's like you're spread out and you're trying to do a bunch of different services because
absolutely.
you can kind of
You
predict the problems that are going to come up.
Yeah, and you'll run into them. And then you'll have a fix. Once you fix it once, you got to fix every time, or you got another route to run before you so that you don't have that problem on the next house. But yeah, you find one thing and just start running with it and you'll you'll kink out all those problems very
Yeah.
quickly. And it's good to run into all those problems too. Like
Yeah.
those problems are not bad. Those problems are actually really good because you'll never run into it again if you have that kind of mindset. Depends on
Right.
that kind of mindset. It's an entrepreneur mindset too. I
Um,
know my wife, she'll like complain about one thing and I'm like, okay, so like and I'm so hard sometimes because it's like it's all about your attitude.
mm,
And some people want to have a bad attitude and I'm like, okay, have a bad attitude. You can't be in business because you're gonna get 8 no's before you get a yes anywhere.
right. Right. Yeah.
And that
100%.
one yes, or even that one potential yes, has to give you and fuel that tank for those next 8 no's, you know?
Yeah.
Uh, just because you run off of that high. There's a statistic out there where once you sell one time, it's easier to sell because people sense it, people feel it when you're confident. And when you sell one thing, you're confident, you're more confident on it. So, yeah.
Right. What were some challenges that you guys ran into as you kind of got things off the ground with the business?
Yeah. Um, Challenges where um, finding out. So production and sales, right? That's that's two parts of that business. If we broke it down really easy, was production and
Right.
sales. Well, sales is their top priority is to sell a job. Production, their top priority is to get it done. Well, sales will come over here and sell something that production doesn't really do. And
Gotcha.
and so there'll always be a fight between production and sales. If this person is never in production, then this person's it's gonna happen. They're gonna sell something that production can't do. And production's gonna get upset about it. And they could potentially, or, you know, sales will start to do a different process or say some things that we do, but production says it differently, right?
Right.
It's communication from sales to production, from start to finish, has to be seamless. And that's one thing that we definitely ran into where when we first started, John and I, we were having meetings every week. We would have meetings every week until I left. It was every week. And the reason being is because we need that communication
Right.
from what what Peter says when he's going into the sales meeting and what I say when I'm leaving the job for the last time needs to be the same.
Right.
And because you can't sell a false job and
Yeah.
I can't put drywall on because you said it, right? Like that's not our skill, right?
No,
So,
I've come
uh,
across that, like, talking to remodelers, I've come across that issue, especially where like the designer will go in and sell something and like, oh yeah, we can do XYZ with your kitchen. And then, the remodeler guy comes in and says, well, we
yeah,
structurally cannot do that. So like, I'm curious. So I understand that context, but I feel like attics are a little bit simpler. So I'm curious where some of those, like what were some things that sales wanted to sell that created
yeah.
hiccups for
It's
construction?
actually in the numbers. Um, so production, they had a number to sell or to produce it at, which was 50%. So if we sold the job for $1,000, then that means I needed to get somebody out there for $500 and the materials to get it done. So
Okay.
let's say Joe was going to do it for $200 and it was $600 in materials. That I can't do that. I need to have a minimum somewhere, right? Or like it was a lot in that kind of sense of, hey, you're selling too low or you're mismatching the numbers, which you can find in remodeling, right? Where it's like, wait, your square footage was off. Um,
Okay.
and so especially if it's going to be $6 a square foot and your square footage is $1,000 a 1,000 square feet off or 100 square feet off, that's $1,000,
Gotcha.
um, and you're trying to find that somewhere. And sales, they had, and after a little while, they built in a buffer which had a couple different line items on it where it was like sanitize the attic, $100, and attic inspection, $100. And so what we would do is we created these processes that were for free for us, but they weren't free for the client. So that was a buffer for us to be able to make production numbers, but it was also a buffer for sales to be able to leverage.
Mm,
And so if sales knew production very well. And weekly, I would have a sales rep follow me. And every week, a sales rep once a week would
mm,
follow me. And and just and I would explain everything. This is what we do here. This is what is happening right now. This
okay.
is how we measure the attic. This is what's going on. This is our process. This is what we would do in this situation on this property or da 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 da. Like, oh, there's a
Yeah.
hole in the ceiling. Look at what I'm gonna do now. Like, um,
So just
it's
that regular ongoing communication to resolve.
ongoing training. You can never outgrow training. You can never outgrow communication. I was I was and this is something in the business that I have now, but with higher end interior design work and people are gonna think one thing and sign the contract on another thing.
Right.
And what you have to do, especially with change orders, and my business is, I mean, half of it is change orders, right? Is um is you got to relay every time, even if you think you're annoying them, communicate, repeat it. Even if you think you're annoying them, do it one more time. If you don't think you're annoying them, you're not saying it enough. Like seriously,
Interesting. Okay.
because because then what it is okay, Blake, we get it. We get it. It's gonna be a little bit more on that side because we're picking a different type of material. Or we get it, it's gonna be a little bit more because we're getting 2 more inches of spray foam. Like and just relaying it, relaying it, relaying it, relaying it. Or okay, Blake, we get it. Sales cannot sell attic ladders. Like whatever it is. Now they never did
Right.
sell any of that kind of stuff, but that's just an example,
Just a
right?
sample. Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah,
So
always.
is kind of going a different direction here, but um, is um, is attic work like is that pretty seasonal? Like, does it go up and down throughout the year?
Yeah. So right now they're probably in ramp up, probably getting real busy. Um, from I would say mid-May to mid-November is is like busy time and is like crazy chicken with his head cut off running around like just absolute ballistic. Um, and I mean, it's easy to do 150,000 weekly in
Mm,
sales just in those months.
right.
And if you're not, then
Did that fluctuation
no.
throughout the year, like, did that create any challenges for you guys, either operationally or sales wise?
Absolutely. Yeah, we had to we had to try to keep our we had to hold on one second. I'm gonna plug in my laptop. We had to try to keep our staff lean and clean and mean, man. But because the winter time would come and I'd have nothing for some people. And you got to really focus on, okay, how much can this person do? This goes back into training, right? How
Hmm.
much can this person do in creating that culture too? And if you always have to think about the slowest time, can I still afford it? The slowest time, can I still be okay in that?
Hmm.
The slowest time, are we gonna all be still busy?
Hmm.
And in the fastest time, are we gonna be chickens with our head cut off? Are we gonna slack on our quality? What's
Right.
gonna happen there? Um, and you got to find that medium, which is definitely a challenge. And I think it's different every year because you're growing every year.
Hmm.
So, our first year, we hit, shoot, man, 1.2 million, and it was
Hmm.
just me and John. And it was fine. We were doing good.
Yeah.
But I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off,
Right.
man. I would I would have some of my contractors even close the job and me not even be there at all because there was 7 jobs that day that I
Right.
couldn't go to, and there was 3 others that I needed to go to. And so there
Yeah.
was 10 jobs going on, and I needed to show face on which one, right?
Hmm.
And you mix around with it, right? Like there was we had started with a um project manager kind of setup where a project manager would get the job, they would schedule them, they would get the contractor, they would get the job done, and then they would finish it out.
Hmm.
And we moved from that to sales sells it, production manager comes in and schedules it, and then you've got a field supervisor that's just running around like a chicken with his head cut off, showing face, having the nice polo, having the nice
Yeah.
smile. They they get paid $20 an hour. We give them a truck and they just have fun every day. They don't have to worry about the contractors because they're not dealing with the contractors. The production manager is. And so
Gotcha. Okay.
and that we found a little sweet spot in because what you could do was you had a a field supervisor, but you had a production manager, and there's 2 different roles, right? The production manager did all of the scheduling, the calls, the
Mm.
problems. He was the manager that, oh, give me your manager guy had to go do, right?
So the way I'm understanding, so like the production manager was basically the one responsible for making sure the trains ran on time, but the field supervisor was there more for like the customer's sake, like to present.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Okay.
production manager was back end. He was just like, and he would do pretty much all the work. Field supervisor, he would just be pretty, be happy, and make sure the client's happy. Get a vacuum and vacuum the hallway because there's insulation in it. Like, and don't put it on our contractors because our contractors are going too fast now. Like,
Gotcha.
it was, and it what it did was it actually created that fluctuation from winter to summer, where when I needed two field supervisors, guess who was the next supervisor? The production manager. He
Yeah.
would jump out on the field now. Yes, he would be making his calls out on the field, but he would jump out on the field, you know, three,
Gave you some
4 times a
flexibility.
week and have that flexibility to where, yes, if we had a bubble week where we hit, 250,000 and our normal was, let's say, 115, we doubled our sales. How are we going to do this? We still have to keep a 2 week turnaround. How are we going to do it? We're going to double it 1 week, or we're going to double 2 weeks, double down in 2 weeks, and uh and the production manager is going to go out and be a field supervisor too. And then that creates okay, let's do that for maybe 3 months. Okay, now it's 3 months ahead. Okay, maybe we should hire another field supervisor now and
Mm.
replace that. And and you've got flexibility, right? You have to have flexibility in throughout those seasons.
Was so the production manager, so they weren't communicating with the customer at all. It was just like the field
No, they
supervisor.
would. Yeah, they would call and schedule. That's it.
Okay,
And then
gotcha.
the
So
field supervisor the morning of um would text them and let them know, hey, this is Sean. I'm your field supervisor. I'll be your rep to talk to all day long. If you have any questions, please reach out. But I'll be there around 10 o'clock and crew will be there at 10 or at 8 or whatever. Um, and that they'll be the day of communication and then they'll be done. And then then the production manager calls the day after and make sure everything was good, everything was
yeah,
taken care of. If not, the field supervisor back over there to fix it or whatever.
yeah. No, I love that because I feel like the production manager is just like a skill set that's more expensive to pay an employee for,
Yeah,
where maybe all you need in some cases is just so having the having him on site with a customer is very expensive because you're paying a more expensive role to do
yeah,
a role that you can
yeah.
pay someone. So
When all the client needs is somebody that's wearing a t-shirt that looks nice and that can talking and speak English to somebody.
right, yeah,
That's it. That's
uh,
all they really need. If the
smooth things
job
over.
is going well and somebody's not falling through the ceiling, that's all they need. If somebody's falling through the ceiling, that's worth bringing a,
Right,
a production manager over there, right? That's worth
right.
that. So,
So
yeah.
during your guys' slower times, like I can understand that weight of wanting to make sure there's enough work for everybody, wanting to make sure you're keeping your crews busy. So what did you guys do to generate business during those times?
Yeah, that's more of a John question.
Okay,
He was, I mean, he was a wizard with SEO. He was a wizard with marketing. Um, we got an average of 23 calls a week.
okay,
Uh, and we what we did was we would and this is I could be wrong in a little bit of this too, but what we would do is we would divide, or not divide, but we will divide it up to where, okay, this one came from Google. This one was a referral. This one came from networks. This one came from Home Advisor. This one came from this one, and or Yelp or Angie's List
right,
or whatever, right? And we'd see which and the cost of each lead too.
Yeah.
and we would see which was our cheapest lead and how many leads are we getting it from and what's our close rate on all of them too. And so we could narrow it down to where, okay, Google's our obviously cheapest lead and uh and our highest close rate as well. So let's take networks off because we have a 10% close rate off that.
Mhm.
Let's take that $2,300. Let's put it more into Google. And it takes a lot of work to keep that organized. That's what I was saying about seeing him organized with his numbers
Right.
really gave me that piece to just like
Yeah.
got
Uh-huh.
that. Like I'll create culture over here. You
Right.
keep
Right.
a freak in the sheets kind of thing, you know? But
A freak in the Google Sheets.
in the Google Sheets, yeah. Um, and so yeah, it's more so just like allocating that money, knowing where that money's going, knowing your ROI on it, and allocating it to wherever a better ROI is.
Yeah. Where
And
what lead sources like um because a lot of people come to me for Facebook ads and where their business is at. I usually recommend like for some people if their business is a little earlier in the process or various reasons, I'll recommend other lead sources.
yeah,
But like what like so I'm curious what lead sources you found typically work or like usually ended up being on the top for like the best ROI, or did it just change around all the time?
Google for sure was always the best.
Okay. Now, did
Sponsored.
did you do
This,
like Google Guaranteed or
yeah, so you get Google Guaranteed, and then and that's Google Guaranteed is like a verification. And so you don't pay for it monthly or anything. You just get kind of verified that you're, and Google will guarantee it. So Google Guarantee is pretty much, hey, it's Google saying, I back I back that company up. If they lose money, if they if they not lose money, if they do a really bad job for you, we're gonna have a process for you to be able to get your money back. Obviously, they probably will never be able to get their money back from Google, right? Like that's Google saying Google guaranteed.
right?
But they probably make it a 10-year process or something like that. But that's kind of what Google guaranteed is. Now, Google sponsor, where if you look up a let's say garage doors, right? Let me look
Mhm.
this up. And you garage doors. And you see this sponsor right here,
Yeah,
right? That's paid.
right,
That's the first one up, and that's the paid one. Precision Garage Doors of Southlake. That is paid. And then DFW number one. Oh, you can't really see that. My
right. It's a
bad.
little right. I did see the first one though. So you're saying that okay.
Yeah, and then DFW number one Garage Doors. That's still
Yep.
sponsored. That one's still sponsored. Oh, I don't want to. I don't want that. Now I'm gonna get a bunch of ads. Uh, it's all still sponsored, and then you can get into actual places where it's where you're the closest.
Right. So you're saying like you guys like sponsored ads, like pay per click was a good lead source.
Sponsored ads was the best. And then when you get sponsored ads and you start to get reviews, I think Superior Attic has like 350 reviews now.
Hmm.
And when you start to get all those reviews, they're I think the first one that comes up in all of DFW now.
Right.
Um, because of the SEO, because get your reviews, pay that sponsorship, and now they don't even have to pay that sponsorship because they're the first one up now.
Right. Yeah. So besides the PPC and the SEO, as far as for like pay per lead sources, were there any that tended to work better than others?
Yeah, Google was always the best for sure. But then it was Facebook underneath that.
Okay.
And then right underneath Facebook was I think it was Home Advisor,
Okay.
or it was Angie's. That's what we called it.
Right, right.
But they're together. Angie's and Home Advisor are together.
Yeah,
So
Angie bought Home Advisor.
um, yeah, it was Facebook, then Angie's, then Yelp, then Networks.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. And then
Yeah,
Thumbtack never got us anything.
I've been surprised by how many people cite Yelp as a pretty good, pretty good lead source for them. Do you know, like, kind of how, like, do they send is it a pay per lead platform with them, or do you pay them a certain amount to promote your business?
For Yelp,
Yeah.
I think it's different. You could do either way. You
Okay.
could pay per lead, and you could also pay like a sponsorship kind of thing where it's monthly.
Okay. Gotcha. So, so you had your slow seasons, and then ramping up into the ramping up to the busy seasons. I'm just curious, like, what all did you guys do to streamline and prepare and make sure everything was like running as smoothly as it possibly could before
Yeah.
the busy season hit?
It's training, lots of training. We would have we'd have guys from the manufacturer, the insulation manufacturer, on Friday mornings over and have them talk about what's happening and or what the product is, how well it works, why to do this one, what we can put it on, what we can't put it on, the safety of it, all of that, um, which would help with our guys being able to say yes and no to things, not
Mm,
sell a bad job, right? Because a bad job will like an improperly sold job cost twice as much as
yeah,
a good sold job, because a good sold job you'll actually never remember, but a bad sold job you will always remember. I remember one of our first bad sold jobs, man. It took us 2 weeks to get done, and our average time frame was 1 day. Was 1 day. Like it shouldn't have taken us 2 weeks, but it was our first bad sold job, and you gotta make those mistakes to really be able to streamline. And it's different for every industry, right? Like you gotta you gotta have those slow times and make as many mistakes as possible in those slow times to be
mm,
like, okay, in this fast time, that took way too long. I'm not selling that during summer.
right.
Or or like for instance, we did radiant barrier as well. We did so all of our services were a full restoration, which was going in, sucking out all the old insulation and blowing new insulation. Um, we did blowing just what's called a top off, putting more insulation on top of the old insulation, and then we did spray foam, and you had to remove the old insulation to do the spray foam. And so with that, it was three different things. Very easy. One contractor, three different
Yep.
things. And um, and then also we did radiant barrier in the slow season because it was more popular during the winter. So we would do that, and then we would cut it off during
Mm,
the
okay.
the summers, because radiant barrier would take 3 or 4 days. That was a that was a pain in the butt to actually
Right.
do. And and spray foam takes half a day. Like you could do a $15,000 project in 5 hours,
Right.
and it's one conversation with the client, and you're making 7 grand. Like
Yeah.
it's easy.
Right.
But radiant barrier, and that you got to focus on those. You got to focus on what's the fastest, what's the easiest, and and getting your team united. If
Yeah.
your team isn't united, you're gonna it's gonna be a tornado.
Yeah.
But if your
Yeah. And
team
I,
is united, then you can actually, all right, let's only sell these jobs right now because we are packed to the plate, and those jobs are the fastest and most profitable.
Yeah, and I like the idea of kind of like transitioning the services you do depending on the time of year because, during that slow season, the priority is like, how do I keep my guys happy with, having enough hours, making sure that, we're supplying them with work. But then the priority in summer is like, the work is going to be there. So then it just becomes, how do we do each project as quickly as humanly possible?
Yep.
So I like that kind of like fluctuating of the
But keeping
services,
quality. Yeah.
keeping it quality, right? No, we don't want to do quality. We just want to get in and
Never
out.
sacrifice quality.
Let the customer deal with the product. No, I'm just kidding. So I noticed that so on their website right now, there's duct cleaning, solar attic fans. Um, were those did you guys start with those, or were those services that they added in later on?
Yeah, those actually were started. Now duct cleaning, you maybe sold five or six a year. And the duct cleaning, I set it up to where my my duct, the guy that cleaned all of our ducts, he was
Hmm.
the rep too. So he would close shop, pick up the check, drop it off at our office. So he did not like we did nothing for a job after
Hmm.
with a duct cleaning. And then the solar attic fans, um, we had our field supervisors start to do. That was
Okay.
one of those buffer items that we would
Okay.
throw to
That makes sense.
buffer a job a little bit more.
Okay. Got it. And when you say buffer a job, you mean like adding in that attic fan would raise the ticket price enough to where,
Yeah. To
okay.
where then, let's say the full attic insulation restoration was, let's say, 5,600, and then you add $1,000, so 6,600 for that and the fan, but the fan was only, you know, $400. So really you're at a because our uh our target margin, profit margin to hit was 52% for production. That was
Okay.
before any office stuff or anything. That's like hard cost of goods, right?
Right.
And so, 52%, we got to hit that 52%. So if that was a buffer because the materials were only like 30% of the actual line item. And then we had our field supervisor, which is in our overhead, not even in our job cost, our
Right.
actual hard cost of goods. And um, so it's really just allocating that where those numbers go, to be able to have those buffers.
How did
I'll
you,
always encourage buffers everywhere you go. Put a buffer.
yeah. Um, it- and I mean, worst case scenario, if you end up not needing the buffer, you could, I mean, nobody would ever do this, but a lot of guys out there are, I guess, conscientious with like, oh, I don't want to overcharge the customer. Worst case scenario, if you need that buffer, you could always refund the customer a couple $100, and the customer would love you for it. You know what I mean? So I just because I know there's some people that are gonna watch this and think, oh, like 50% mark, like that's way too high of a price. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's just kind of a
Well, at the end of the day, as a business, we made like 22% profit margins.
okay,
And so we still had that 30% of office, trucks,
right, yeah,
payroll, admin. Um, like there was a lot of other hard costs there. Sales, like sales guys got to get paid good because I mean they're sales guys. So you got to pay them good, or they
right, right.
run off of their ego and their confidence. You gotta pay them good, and they'll sell good. So yeah, I mean that is just strictly cost of hard goods.
So how did you go about finding like 50 subcontractors is a lot, first of all. So how did you A, find them, and then B, how did you distinguish between, knowing who the good subs were going to be versus the bad subs?
Um, the first one, how did I find so many people? You build them. You build them. If you if they have good communication and they've got drive, you invest that time into them and it will come back fruitful. So, like for instance, um, it was a little bit hard at first trying to find that contractor because I was learning too, right? So we were making those mistakes, those silly, silly mistakes, but they were good for us because they were building our business.
Hmm.
Though it didn't look like it, they were still building our business. And so, um, with that, the the way I found contractors, and talk to them. You talk to them, you ask them certain questions.
Hmm.
Okay, what would you do in this? What like, hey, I've got this job. I'm looking at this. Like, what's your price on that? You got to start to talk their lingo,
Mm.
and they'll start to understand and give you that respect to where then they'll do a good job for you because you know what is right and what is wrong, and if you show that you know what's right and what's wrong, then they will do what's right because they know that you'll call out the wrong.
Right. They're accountable.
Um, yeah. And I mean, there's so many different things, right? So, like for instance, our contractors, they would work with us daily. Obviously, it was every day they were doing something. They were coming to the shop, picking up all the materials, going to the jobs. And so with that, we'd start to create a culture with them. And building people is so much better than just trying to find more people because
Mm. Yeah.
you're training these people to be the best for you.
Right.
Like that's the best way to do it, man. It's like if you talk to any big corporate Fortune 500 company, they're going to say, let's try to hire in-house first. Let's try to hire from from somebody else in our business, in our company. I want to bring Joe from production over to sales. He's still in Superior Attic, but I want to move him over here because
Mm.
he's a company loyal guy. He's not an industry
Right.
loyal guy. And make those people loyal to the
Hmm.
company. I have this one contractor that that it was just him and his brother, and he was doing fantastic work. There were some jobs he was really he wouldn't do great on, but we would talk about it. I'd have his back, he'd have my back. You have their back, they're gonna have your back. And um and we would talk about it, we'd see what we could do, and let's say the client wanted $1,000 back. I'd say, hey man, the client wants $1,000 back. Let's half it. I'll half it with you. I just ask, you did wrong. I just let me take $500 off your check. I'll take $500 off my profit and we'll give it to them. And
Mm.
it's showing that we want them to win too.
Right. Yeah.
Like I don't want to be the only one winning because
Yeah.
if I'm the only one winning, then I'm going to be lonely. But Peter, if you're winning and I'm winning, we're going to be celebrating together. And you're going to have something to celebrate for you and inside of you, and I'm going to have something to celebrate for me. And
Right.
so it's going to hit that where we're both celebrating and that brings
Yeah.
culture, right? That
Yeah.
brings
And
a
you
lot
could
of
look at
good
that like
culture.
you didn't necessarily lose $500. You invested $500 into that relationship.
Yeah. Yeah,
Because
yeah.
if he's a good sub, and it's worth keeping that relationship, then you want to keep it.
And and it was worth keeping it because 8 months later, I didn't have any other contractors, and that contractor, Eric, it was just him and his brother, now have 8 different crews. By the time I left, he had 8 different crews and like 6 trucks, and like it was just because he kept buying materials, he kept buying all this stuff to help us out because we were growing and he was growing. And it was great. You know what I mean? He was winning, we were winning, we were having fun. I'd buy him a 12 pack of soda whenever I went by. Like, you
Right.
know what I mean? It was just like you invest that time, you invest that effort, you have that smile on your face, and you show them that you care about them. Oh, dude, they'll make every job good for you.
Interesting. Yeah, I love that. It's interesting how important that relationship really is. It sounds like they kind of almost in a sense, like even though they weren't direct employees, like it sounded like they kind of became like a part of your company, like very integrated with your company.
Yeah, that so we, I mean, you got to take necessary steps at certain times. And so we had conversations with him of, hey, like, we don't want you doing work for anybody else anymore. Like, it's only for us. We're
Hmm.
gonna start putting some badges on your trucks and trailers and all of that, and just kind of like working it in that way of like, hey, you still get this big fat check every week, but let's the reason why, and this is the sales in building a brand, building a business, you got to sell it. You got to sell it to the people that are underneath you, right? If you want more jobs, we got to be more reputable. And to be more reputable, I need a logo on that truck.
Right. Yeah.
You mind me putting a logo on that? I'll pay for it. I'll pay for it.
There
I'll
you go.
flip you
Okay.
500 too,
Yep.
and oh yeah, sure, 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 and then that's a billboard going around the whole city for you,
Yeah.
building brands. And then you get, you know, filming every couple every couple months, and you get a drone out there and this big box truck with your big logo and what you're doing and 8 guys just running around doing things. And it shows stability in a business. It shows that we care for people. It shows that we know what we're doing, you know
Yeah.
and we're a strong running company. So
When you guys were hiring employees, what was that process like?
oh, we made it extensive. We made it hard
Okay.
to work for us, actually. So, we had a minimum of 3 interviews before you were even thought about getting the job. Now,
Wow.
we would know, we would know, we would know if you were going to get the job within the second interview, but, um, but it was more so we wanted you to want this job. Because if you don't want this job, this is building culture again. If I just talk to somebody for 5 minutes ago, you know what, you're hired, he's not gonna steward the job very well. He's not gonna appreciate it very well because he
Interesting.
never really worked for it. Just like if I just gave my son $50 million, he's gonna go and blow it. I mean, the Bible talks about it all the time with the prodigal child, right? Like they
Mm,
went
yeah.
and blew it, and then he didn't know what he really had. And so, um, and that obviously goes super psychology, all of that. But
Right.
that process, now I'm just rat squirrel. Um,
Right.
so anyways, that process, we had different interviews for different positions, right? So we had a positional interview. That was the first interview. Are you even qualified for the project or for that position, right?
Right.
And then what we had was a after that we had a EQ interview, which was an emotional intelligence interview. How how are you in public? How are you gonna do with the team and the culture that we have here and all of that? And then we have another interview that more so just like talks about us a lot, and it's really doesn't have any much more. Like we'd use it for a little bit more of EQ. We'd use it a little bit more for
And you
positional,
were probably trying to
talk a
see
little bit
like
more.
how they like when were going over your company and your culture and stuff. Probably what you guys were doing too is like seeing how they react to that. Like, does it sound how excited do they get?
Oh
But
yeah.
maybe
That's that's one of the first things in the interview, in the first interview, in the positional interview. And you you know, one of the first questions in the positional interview, and it depended on if John and I would take it. Because if they were in production, I'd take the first one because it's positional. I'd be uh their top command, right? Or it'd be John because that if they were in sales because he would be their top command. And so, anyways, uh, that positional interview, you ask them, do you know what you're interviewing for? And if they're able to actually talk about what they're interviewing for, that's a great sign. Most cases, and I wish I actually had the numbers for this, but most cases that people wouldn't know what they're interviewing, or they would know, but they would just be like, I don't like really, I just need a job. Like,
Hmm.
out of here. Like, I want you to want this. I want you to want your position. And I mean, to be honest with you, we paid guys well too. It's not like we didn't pay people bad. Like we paid guys straight out of high school, $22 an hour, and they got a company truck and a company card to go fill up gas and get lunch if they needed to every once in a while. Like we paid people good. So we needed to have them want it so that they could steward it. And then yeah, we it a lot of positional interviews. I talked a lot about past, um, what's their experience, how did they handle certain situations. I would even I would even go into scenarios and ask them what would they do in a scenario. We created films, we
Mm.
created videos of scenarios, and I would ask them what would you do after that scenario. Um, and 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 then EQ, we ask them how do they deal with anger, what makes them angry, like what what uh what do they like to do on the weekend? What's how do they celebrate a big win? What do they do when they lose? What happens when they have a hard day? What how do you relax after a hard day? How do you relax after a good day? Like all those things will tell you about a person very,
Mm.
very easily. Um, and but you got to be
You can't
there's a
just take
lot
their
of
word for it
laws
sometimes.
around EQ interviews. What?
Uh, well, I was going to say you can't just take people's word for it sometimes. You also have to like you
Discernment.
also have to
Yeah.
like see kind of like how are they talking to and like kind of like psychoanalyze them to some extent,
Yeah, you
just
gotta
on
have
what's
that
going on in
EQ,
the interview.
right?
Right,
Yeah, you gotta
exactly.
have that EQ. After I mean, dude, I've probably done probably over 200 EQ interviews, and I love them. I love them because I get to know the person
Right. Yeah.
and I really get to know who they are, unless they are just absolute put face out, like don't like put walls up. And this is who I am. I portray it. You can easily tell it, man. You can easily tell if that person is not who they really are or who they say they are. But yeah, I mean, EQ interview and then a separate interview, and then we would typically take them out to lunch after that and
Okay.
give them if it was a if they were getting hired, we'd take them out to lunch and give them the good news then.
You said that like three interviews was your minimum. In what scenarios did you take people on to like a fourth or a fifth interview?
Yeah. So management interviews went to a fourth or fifth, because what we would actually do, we'd get other business owners that were in the area, like a painting business that is one step ahead of us in our business, and they've hired somebody before for this position. We haven't hired somebody for this position before, so he's buddies with us. So, hey, can you step in, interview this guy for us, and tell us what you think about it since
Interesting.
you've had
Okay.
that position before. If we haven't had that position, I'm I don't consider myself qualified to interview for that, right? Unless I've done that position for, you know, so many months and I'm great at it, then that's so different. But if you're hiring for that position, you want somebody that's hired for that position to interview as well.
And I mean, did they just do that for you because of the relationship you had? Was there
Yeah.
any?
Yeah. I mean, it's business groups. You got to get into business groups, and it's or not marketing, networking, right? You got
Right.
to have that. You got to have your groups. You got to have that, and that's just being a business owner in general. because you're gonna have big loses, you're gonna have big wins, and business owners, their big wins are usually bigger than people that are just W-2, and you don't really want to celebrate with people because they don't understand. They don't understand the how much work that took to getting that win, or
Mm.
how much that actually really sucks because that was a big loss, or whatever. Those like-minded people running businesses just like you.
Were there any business groups that you found particularly helpful?
Um, right now I got two different business groups. Um, we'll call them networking groups. They're great. And I would suggest to everybody to get in a network group, even if you don't get anything out of it at first. Stay in it, stay consistent, and not just that, but most business owners need to see you for a while before they
Mm.
actually refer you.
Is it just like
Referrals are
local, like a BNI group that you're part of? Is there
it's
like a national group
it's
you're part
kind
of?
of a BNI group, but one of the groups, me and my real estate broker, we just put a bunch of elite professional guys together that are
Okay.
just like,
So you helped like kind of create it a little bit.
yeah, that one, yes. And then I got invited to another one with my CPA, and
Okay.
and and that one's great. I haven't gotten anything from that one, but I've gotten a lot of people to do work for me for that one though, which
Nice.
is great. That one's a little more less professional, but here's the thing. These networking groups, there's going to be seasons of a there's going to be fruitful seasons and there's going to be famine seasons. You're going to have seasons where you're going to have multiple people coming at you and wanting to refer you and just like and wanting you to work for them and da 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 da. And then there's going to be seasons where you're going in and you're spending most of the money at the group because everybody, you need all of their work, right? You need somebody to do that website design. You need somebody to print out your business cards. You need somebody to you need that realtor to buy that property or whatever, right? Like there's going to be seasons of it, and just stick with it. Consistency in business is the best thing in business. Consistency.
Love it. So if you were starting from scratch, if you were starting an attic insulation business all over again, is there anything that you would do differently this time around?
No,
Nope.
no. I I probably would have made a little bit more mistakes. I love mistakes. Mistakes make you who you are. And um I did a lot of research. Um but no, man, I wouldn't have changed a thing. I loved that journey. That journey was so fun, and God has his place in it, and the Lord definitely put me there for a reason and took me out for a reason. And it was fun. It was
Love
fun.
it. So what advice would you have for someone who's just getting started, either just starting their contracting business or maybe they've had it for a while and they're just starting to grow it? Um, what advice would you have for them?
Uh on the slow days, don't let those take you out. I think I said it in the very beginning of the of this call. Let that one win or that one potential win fill your tank for the next eight no's. And you'll find it. You'll find that success one day. You'll hit it. Stay consistent. And those days that you're on your face with nothing to do and crying your eyes out because you're about to lose everything, stick with it. Just stick with it
Mm,
because you will regret not sticking with it more than you will regret sticking with it.
makes sense. Cool, man. Hey, well, thank you so much for being on. A lot of fun. I feel like I learned a lot, and yeah, I just appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah.